So we see serious continuities with the preceding periods, at least in Sanskrit Shastra, as well as new trends which emerge. And obviously, in history, new trends emerge constantly. It's not the prerogative of modernity alone. And so Tarkaratna was born in 1867 in Bhatpara, and he was trained initially as an Nayayika by his father and then later Rakhaldas Nyayaratna. And later, he was also involved with the Bangbashi Press's project of publishing editions of the Puranas. Later in life, he moved to Varanasi. He was involved with the Banaras Hindu University. He appears to have been at least acquainted with Gopinath Kaviraj. He was also quite active in the political circles, sort of the cultural political circles in Varanasi at the time. He often tended to take the more conservative side of views. For example, he's supposed to have given up the title of Mahamahopadhyaya um, to protest the Sharda Act. So he's this, complex, strange, complex person who was engaging seriously with what we would think of as many worlds at the same time. My work deals with his writings in what he calls Shakta Vedanta. Um, so we see again in the 16th to 20th century period different kinds of attempt to bring Sri Vidya into sort of mainstream Sanskrit Shastra, not just practice, right? So we see a little bit of it in Lakshmidharan's commentary on the Saundarya Lahari, but much more systematically in Bhaskar Raya's work, where he tries to make it into a progression. So there's Purva Mimamsa, there is Uttar Mimamsa, and then there is Bhakti Mimamsa, which Anand Mekar Krishnan has written about. And the Tantras are part of Bhakti Mimamsa. And I mean, he has a larger project which I've written about elsewhere in terms of how he engages with Advaita Vedanta and so on. Swami Vedabharati, who is the third figure in my triad, engages with Sri Vidya through Vedanta and Yoga. Tarkaratna, what he does is that he offers an alternative reading of the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, and he calls it the Shakti Bhashya, in which he reads much of the Brahma Sutra in two ways, right? So there's one commentary which deals with questions of metaphysics, and he has his own quite distinctive, I think, take on metaphysics where he combines um, an understanding of conscient and inconscient aspects of Brahman with Advaitic Pratibhimbavada. But I won't be getting into that today. Today, I want to talk about, I mean, in my talk, in the presentation, I've spoken about 3 or 4 major issues. One is the inclusion of the goddess in questions of ritual hermeneutics. The other is the question of the desire for liberation. And the third is the interpretation of a particular passage from the Taittiriya and how he engages with predecessors within the Sri Vidya tradition as well as Shankara's Vedanta. So my attempt is to demonstrate how there is a genuinely creative, continued engagement with the Shastric tradition, which cannot be explained away simply as a kind of revival or reaction. Um, so the first instance is the way he understands or reading a text in different ways, right? So somewhere in his writing, he says that he argues for duality in a particular text, and another text, he himself says that I've only argued for duality there so I can show that Nyaya is also Vedic. That's a whole different thing that he has on. But really, non-dual truth is the actual state of affairs. And these two incompatible views are both okay because depending upon an individual's eligibility, the goddess will make it work for you. So long as you pick up on one thing and you follow it sincerely, the goddess, out of compassion, will make it work. And this also feeds into the way he reads the Brahma Sutra. This constant dual interpretation. Also, although the idea of the sutras being Vishwang Mukha goes all the way back. I mean, it's an old idea. Padmapad already cites it as an old idea, but it takes on a completely. It really takes on a new life in this period, in this late second millennium period. We see this also in Appaya's writing. I mean, Appaya is commenting on the Bhamati, I mean, on the Kalpataru, but he's also at the same time commenting on the Shiva, on the on Srikantha's Bhashya and the Brahma Sutras. The other thing I've taken up is the question of the desire for liberation. Tarkaratna raises the question of whether renunciation of sense objects, which is based on an aversion to sense objects, should not count as just normal aversion and lead to further bondage. And similarly, why attachment to liberation should not also count as regular attachment and lead to further bondage. And now this is an old question. Mandana addresses this in his Brahma Siddhi, and he's partly in engagement with the Nyaya tradition, which questions which argues that liberation is just a purely negative state. Even before that, this question of motivation and attachment was addressed in Dharmakirti, and Eli Franco has written about this a little bit, where essentially it comes down to raga, attachment by itself does not count as a fault. It's only when it is clubbed together with avidya or ignorance. Mandana takes this position. Anandabodha in the 12th century adds a new dimension to it by introducing the fact that he raises a question that if you have desire for liberation because it's a positively pleasurable experience, why would you not get distracted by other pleasures? And he argues that this question of liberation only comes up for you once you've given up all other objects, and you're already supposed to have shama, dama, etc. So the question of eligibility begins to play in. When Tarkaratna writes, he raises this question which would have been completely outrageous, I think, to both Mandana and Anandabodha. He says, well, if the goddess's grace accompanies attachment or aversion, it's okay. Otherwise, they're false. That's it, right? So he very evidently is in engagement with this longer tradition on the issue. But at the same time, he introduces something that's very typically late second millennium, this kind of introduction of clear-cut theism, raising the question of a particular deity in what seems to be a regular Vedanta text, is quite distinctive to my mind of this period. Not to say that it doesn't exist before, but these are trends which are beginning to crystallize and intensify in this period. And finally, I've discussed a particular passage from the Taittiriya, from the Taittiriya Brahmana, which Lakshmidharan, the 16th century commentator on the Saundarya Lahari, discusses. And Lakshmidharan's interpretation of this sutra proposes as a Purva Paksha the argument that according to Mimamsa, these mantras are supposed to illuminate objects and sacrifice. And that's how this mantra is. Now, the mantra includes the word charana. And Lakshmidharan's case is that the charana must be the foot of the goddess, of course. The standard Mimamsa understanding, of course, would be that it refers to some kind of an element in sacrifice. Lakshmidhara's response to this is that Siddhamannam parityajya bhiksham atati durmatihi. You have to be a fool to look for these complex interpretations and thinking about sacrifice when you can just worship the goddess's foot and everything will be fine for you. Now, when Tarkaratna treats this question, he comes to the same position as Lakshmidhara, right? He follows Lakshmidhara quite closely in his interpretation. However, rather than go through this route of dismissing Mimamsa completely, he closely engages with Shankara's reading on the sutra, and he actually parallels one position that Shankara illustrates in his reading of the sutra although it's not Shankara's own position, he introduces it as a Kechit position. But so there is this increasing inclusion of Mimamsa hermeneutic principles in contexts which would have completely driven Kumarila crazy, right? So there are some trends that I feel like we can see through this period, and I'm going to quickly go through them. I feel like I'm already over time. I apologize.
Yes, kindly conclude within 1 minute, Tarini.
I will be within 1 minute. Thank you.
Yeah.
One is the introduction of devotion and compassion in hermeneutics in what seems like standard Vedanta, and in textual interpretation, and in things like desire and compassion. So the introduction of devotion and compassion in what would, in sort of properly philosophical issues, so to speak. Novel engagement with older issues, which addresses contemporary and contextual issues, like in the case of liberation. Use of resources which came into being either during this period or they came into prominence during this period. For example, Lakshmidhara's work. And like I've already said, inclusion of in sort of this kind of opening up of Mimamsa to other things, or the opening up of other things to Mimamsa, which, like scholars like Venkatrishnan have been demonstrating, began right at the beginning of our period. And multiple ways of reading the same passage, although this was present before, this kind of multivocity of the same text, I think, becomes much more prominent during our period. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tarini. Uh, Tarini talked about the continued Shastric tradition in later second millennium. I am sure uh, panelists will raise their queries. They will ask their questions, put their questions. Later, when we move towards the question answer session. Now, I can see some other panelists present there. And I would just like to mention that uh, now I have recognized Tarini after seeing her face from close quarters. She is from my college, the college where I studied and where I teach. She is from there. And in course of her presentation, she talked of Lakshmidhar and an old commentator, a medieval age commentator. So I am reminded of another Lakshmidhar who belongs to our college, that is St. Stephen's College, Delhi. It was Pandit Lakshmidhar Shastri Kalla, who has translated a Sermon on the Mount in Sanskrit. So it relates to the paper presented by Swamijit Sen earlier. And now before I move to another presenter, let me just share with you that I had received a few mails from some presenters that although they have sent their abstracts and PDFs written in English language, but they feel comfortable to present their presentations in Sanskrit. So this is the Forum of World Sanskrit Conference, and we have the facilities of both the languages, Sanskrit and English. Both the languages are accepted languages for the presentation as well as for discussions. So now I invite, that should be clear for everybody, that we can raise our questions, we can answer our reply in English as well as in Sanskrit. So now I invite Dr. Sunita Burman to introduce herself briefly and to present her paper, to present the crux of her paper. And whatever language she feels comfortable with, she is allowed to do that. Dr. Sunita Burman.
नमस्ते
Namaste, namaste.
प्रारम्भे ठाकुरमा स्वामीजी प्रति प्रणमस्तु अद्य स्वामी विवेकानन्दस्य शतम एकषष्टितम जन्मदिवसम् उद्यापनं भवति। नमो श्री ज्योतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित् सुख स्वरूपाय स्वामी नेतापहारिणे सर्वेभ्यो नमो नमः। मम विषय आधुनिक संस्कृत साहित्ये स्वामी विवेकानन्दस्य सामाजिक मूल्यबोध। स्वामी विवेकानंद social values in the modern Sanskrit epic. भारतीय समाजतन्त्रवादस्य भविष्यम् अवलम्ब्य वक्तुं प्रवृत्तं वेदान्तवादिना स्वामी विवेकानन्देन उक्तम्, in India we have social communism with the light of Advaita Vedanta, that is spiritual individual planning and around it. विशिष्ट चिंताविदः तथा दार्शनिक डॉक्टर रवींद्र कुमार दासगुप्त मुखेनापि वेदान्तवादी रूपेण विवेकानन्दस्य परिचय प्राप्यते। तस्य भावना आसीत् इस्लामिक चेतनया वेदान्तवादी मस्तिष्कस्य सार्थक समन्वयेन भारते एका শোষণহীনা শ্রেণীহীনা সমাজ ব্যবস্থা ভবিষ্যতি स न केवलं समाजतान्त्रिकः अपि तु भारतस्य निपीडित श्रमजीवी श्रेणीं प्रति प्रथमं सम्मानम् अज्ञापयत् मनसा श्रद्धां प्रणतिं च निवेद्य समुक्तकण्ठेन घोषितवान् हे भारतस्य श्रमजीविनः अहं जुष्मभ्यं प्रणतिं निवेदयामि भारतस्य शूद्र जागरणस्य सम्भावनां प्रत्यक्षीकृत्य स्वदेशवासिनः स्वामी विवेकानन्दस्य अवदत् वदो मूर्ख भारतवासी दरिद्र भारतवासी चण्डालः भारत मम रक्तं मम भ्राता वस्तुतः स्वामिनः साम्यवादी मानवतावाद हि मानवमुक्ते दृग्दृष्टः परन्तु इको आगच्छति अहं न जानामि वस्तुतः विवेकानन्दस्य भावना आसीत् नव्य मानवतावादी वास्तववादी वेदान्तस्य भित्त्या भारतीय समाज व्यवस्थायाः पुनर्निर्माणं समाज व्यवस्थायाः वैप्लविक परिवर्तनं स कर्तुम् ऐच्छेत् स्वामिना मूलतो मार्गत्रयं निर्दिष्टम् गणशिक्षा गणचेतना गणनिर्माणं च विवेकानन्दस्य दृष्टिः सम्प्रदायविशेष न निरुद्ध आसीत् स समग्र समाजम् आलिङ्गितवान् तस्य अग्निमयी वाणी यथा नवीन भारतं जागृतात् कुटीरं भित्त्वा बहिरागच्छन्तु अधुना तद् वाणी वङ्ग्यस्य तथा गृहे गृहे ध्वनिता प्रतिध्वनिता च श्री त्र्यम्बक शर्मा महोदयेन विरचितस्य श्री स्वामी विवेकानंद चरित नामक महाकाव्ये विवेकानन्दस्य महाकाव्य देशभक्ति त्याग भावना अस्पृश्यता भाव निवारणं लोकशिक्षायाः महत्त्वं राजनीतिक दर्शनम् इत्यादिभिः पुलिन्तनन्तु कृष्णनारायण पिल्ले महोदयेन विरचिते विश्वभानु इति महाकाव्ये समग्र विश्वे कल्याण साधनार्थ तस्य व्यावहारिक मूल्यबोध लोकसेवा हि आत्मसेवा श्री ज्योतीन्द्र विमल चौधरी महोदयेन विरचितस्य चम्पू काव्ये संस्कृत शिक्षा विषये अभिप्राय स्वामी विवेकानन्दस्य वेदांत दर्शनम् उपसंहारे समग्र विश्वं प्रति स्वामिनो वार्ता प्रथमत प्रचलत् विज्ञान युगे एकत्व प्रतिपादकः वैदान्तिक मतस्य प्रतिस्थापनम् द्वितीयत समाजं प्रति सचेतनानां विवेचकानां नागरिकानां गुरुत्वारोपणम् तृतीयत अर्थनैतिक प्रगतौ शिल्प प्रसारे उत्साहदानम् चतुर्थतः गणशिक्षा व्यवस्थाः वृत्तिमूलक प्रशिक्षणस्य सम्प्रसारणेन गण आन्दोलनस्य उद्योगः यत्र समाजस्य प्रान्तिक श्रेणी मुक्तानाम् अवहेलितानाम् उन्नयन विधौ निहितमस्ति शिक्षा प्रसारण विषयकं विविधमतं वस्तुतस्तु विवेकानन्द अत्र व्यावहारिक वेदान्त अद्वैत वेदान्त अस्य आत्मतत्त्वं स्थापयितुम् इच्छेत् तेषां आदर्शमूला शिक्षा अद्यतनीय सामाजिक राजनैतिकानां चिन्ताविदां समीपे अन्यतम पार्थेयमिति मन्ये साहाय्यं न च संयत संयोजनं न च नाशनम् ऐकमत्यं च शान्तिश्च न विरुद्धो मनगतिः सहजनं न तु संघर्ष स्वीकृति न तिरस्कृतिः समता शान्तिरेवास्तु विग्रहो न कदाचिन। ओम शांति शांति शांति।
Next, as the next speaker, I would like to call Dr. Gita Kasha. Is she with us?
Unfortunately, the speaker is unable to join us.
I can see a name, Michelle Yim. Is he or she present over here?
No,
And
that's the technical support.
okay, okay, okay. So I think we have so far just these three presentations, just these three presenters.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you have heard each other. So now we can start our discussions, our queries. It's a good sign that we have enough time for the discussions. So as I had informed you in the beginning, that my friend, Professor Deven Patel from Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania, he will monitor the discussion part. So I now hand it over to Professor Deven Patel.
बहु धन्यवादः। अतः एको हि प्रश्नः अहं पृष्टवान् for each of you. So maybe we can have a little discussion and then a general question for everybody. So I will start with Shaumyachit, yours, since I will go in the order, yes? So for you, I wanted to ask, well, first of all, are you familiar, did you have any opportunity to see the Mills Mahakavya in light of the a sort of more modern, well-known text by this P.C. Devasya on the Kristu Bhagavatam.
Kristu Bhagavatam, yeah.
And so I'm curious to see if there is something about that. But the fact that you mentioned that one of your aims in reconstructing or recovering this work was that it also it brought you some insight into the late 19th century Sanskrit literature. So
Yes.
if you could say a few things about what was the nature of those insights that you have discovered so far from that period. Obviously, the Kristu Bhagavatam was published in the late 70s, 1970s.
Yes.
So it's almost 100 years after the
Yes.
work you are speaking of. So it'd be good to hear what was happening in that period.
Yeah. So the first thing is that the Western, when the Western I would say that Western Sanskritists came to India, they have something clear about their mind, that they have two main goals or aims about writing this kind of kavyas. The first thing is to create an atmosphere in this native land of India, where every Sanskrit knowing people will read the Christian books, that is Bible and the other main texts, in the medium of Sanskrit. As you know that in that time in India, Sanskrit was the most prestigious medium of language, of speaking language. So they understood this thing, that they will write their thoughts on the Christianity, and they spread their religion in the medium of Sanskrit. So they they actually propagated the Christian faith in the medium of Sanskrit. Then that is why they compose these types of kavyas. And when I come to the texts written by William Hodge Mill and later on by John Muir, another main writer in this oeuvre of Sanskrit Christian literature, we come to find that these kavyas are maybe written on the motifs of the to spread the Christianity to the native people, but these kavyas are also written from the views of Sanskrit Alankarika Shastras. So we find many features that we find in some classical Sanskrit literature, classical Sanskrit works, like Kalidasa's works and so on. And we find the use of many Sanskrit meters, Samavita meters, like Anushtuv and other Indravajra, Indravangsha, Ruchida, these types of meters. Though they the favorite meter was Anushtuv, as you can see that these type of kavyas are basically written from the views of Puranic literature. In Puranic literature, the main meter was Anushtuv, and these kavyas are also written mainly in Anushtuv meter. In terms of use of rasa, we find mainly Shanta rasa in these texts, but also they have used some, as you see that these kavyas are mainly from the views of an illustrations of their main deity, that is Jesus Christ. So to discuss the life of Jesus Christ and other apostles in Christian literature, they use mainly the Shantarasa. These types of features in a Sanskrit work in classical times, we find these types of things, as we find in the Krishna Bhagavatam also. There are, as I recall, 33 or 37 chapters, sargas, they are in Krishna Bhagavata, the Sanskrit Sahitya Academy awardee, award-winning writing, Mahakavya. And we can say that these types of kavyas are also written in that time, like by John Muir specifically. There are 14 kavyas, as I find, written by John Muir in Sanskrit language. Those are discussing the Christianity and also the lives of mainly the lives of Jesus Christ, and also one of his apostles, like Sri Paula Charitram, Saint Paul. So these types of kavyas and other comparison between Hinduism and Christianity are also there. That is, I recall one of his kavyas, Papa Mochaniya Yatharthopaya Pradarshanam. So it's like this. So here we find that we know that that our sins will be washed away if we bathe in the holy river Ganges, right? So he criticized that views and tried to establish the alternative way, that is, have a clear faith, or have enough faith on Jesus Christ. That is the fine way to wash away your sins, or something like that. So these types of kavya, Sharma Paddhati, another fine kavya, Sharma Paddhati, that is the way to attain happiness. These types of kavyas are also there. So thank you.
With your permission, Professor Patel, I would just like to add what Dr. Saumyajit Sen said about P.C. Devasiyaj Christu Bhagavatam. It is arranged in 33 cantos. And there is a reason for that. He has given a reason for that in the preface of the book. He says that Jesus Christ lived for 33 years. That's the reason he is arranging his book in 33 cantos. So that's quite interesting. And another thing which Saumyajit spoke about, the meter of Anustup, that is called slok, we all know it. So Anustup it has been used for these kind of works, because it is the easiest meter. It is the easiest meter to compose in. So we can see all Raj Tarangini, most of Raj Tarangini, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Karnat, Raj Tarangini, etc. All the books coming in Anustup meter. So yes, he is right that Anustup has been quite popular, quite famous for this kind of writings. So now we can move towards other questions.
Thank you,
So
Professor Jha.
there is another interesting story about this work, that is Krishna Sangeetha, that it is written by William Hodge Mill, and he was a contender of the Borden professorships, right? So there was an interesting story about this. The question naturally arises as to whether Mill could have produced this massive work, that is a Sanskrit Mahakavya, on his own, right? So that time we know that there are many Indian pandits were there to help them to write these types of kavyas. So when a questions to that same effect arose when he was a candidate of this professorships with H. Wilson, won that prestigious award in that same time. So someone from of his colleagues of Bishop's College in Kolkata, he was in Bishop's College, a scholar teacher in Bishop's College in Kolkata. So his colleague came to justify and said that, I quote, "I know that Krishna Sangeetha was composed entirely by Dr. Mill himself without the smallest assistance, beyond what is usual, that is in that composition by any pandit. Everyone studying in this class of language in India has a pandit by him some hours in the day to refer to on questions of idiom, for example, or synonyms. And Dr. Mill has made no more advantage of such than everyone does who is studying the Hindu class of tongues." So it was evident that that Dr. Mill himself, by his own, wrote all the four massive parvas in these kavyas. So it was also interesting in this kavya, a historical value to this.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yes.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So,
And in this connection, with your permission, Professor Patel, I would just like to add, because see, this is quite natural that spoken part of Sanskrit is not very popular outside India. Within India, we get some people, rather a lot of people nowadays, but outside India, it's not that popular. But there are some scholars, not only those who have their Indian origin, even non-Indian origin scholars, some of them are really, they have got expertise. One of such scholars I know of is from Finland, Professor Mansbro. Professor Patel must be knowing him. Professor Mansbro is in Finland. He is our friend. He is of our age only. So he has written a book and got it published from Finland. That's Sri Sadbhujashtakam. So there he has caused just 8 verses written in chaste Sanskrit. Sanskrit, the language is quite matured. And not only these eight verses he has composed, but he has written a very extensive commentary on that. It's so impressive that Professor Satyavrat Sastri wrote a book
Yes.
titled,
European,
Sanskrit Scholars
actually,
of Europe.
European scholars.
Scholars.
Yes. Hmm.
Yes, and he has written one chapter about Professor Mansbro. So even today there are scholars who are quite dedicated, just like Mansbro, who can write and who can speak, flawless Sanskrit. So that was just I wanted to add. Now, Professor Patel.
Thank you. Dr. Avasthi, if you wish to ask some question also, please do. I mean, we have time, we can come back, and I also invite, yeah, please.
Would you like me to ask now or at the end?
No, please do. And I also invite others who may be listening to our program who are invisible. You may also please use the function to put questions in the box. Please, Dr. Avasthi.
Thank you. So I want to kind of building on what Professor Patel was saying, I want to push a little bit on the question of genre. So the text is called Sangeetha. We're treating it as a Mahakavya. I mean, you said that it has some similarities with some stylistic similarities with Kalidas. I mean, I suppose I have two related questions. One is, like, who were his Kavya heroes? Did he like Bharavi? Did he like, did he know Dhoyen? Who was he reading, right? And my other question is, you said it's mostly in Anushtup. I mean, again, I haven't read the text, but is it like Anushtup closing in Upajatis like epic does, like Ramayana and Mahabharata do?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's like that. So
Yes.
then, okay, so do you mean when you say Mahakavya, do you mean it in a sense of epic, or do you mean it in the sense of kind of art poetry, like classical kavya?
Okay. Yeah. Like first thing is that there are many other features also, like that I have said, that the use of rasa that we see in the in a Mahakavya in classical time. So that is there. And the another thing is the use of words that we use in a classical classical work to portray the main hero of the text, that is the Nayaka Itivritta of the Nayaka. These kinds of similarities are also there. The use of chanda, as you have rightly mentioned, the use of upajati chanda and other chandas that makes two other culminations of two chandas to create upajati. These kinds of things are also there. And you see the word Sangeetha is used to portray to mention or discuss the thing that the life of the Jesus Christ can be sung or can be treated as the holy life of to others. That is why I think that the word Sangeetha is used in the title. But you see that in that time to write such a things, and you have asked that who he was reading, right? So as I find in his life that William Hodge Mill was closely reading the kavyas of Kalidasa and other classical writers as well, and the influence of use of those words was also there that that was figured by Kamalakanta Vidyalankar when he was describing him with the with the writings of Kalidasa, and he says, like I said in my when I was talking, that Kalidasa Punaha Ajani Bhubi. So we find these types of stylistic uh, things, stylistic writings, stylistic what I say, things that appeared in the writings of these Sanskrit chart Sanskrit literatures, literatures also. Yeah. So it's kind of a Mahakavya from the view of Sanskrit Alankara as well. We can say that if we discuss very deeply, we can say that, and the huge portion of use of Sanskrit slokas is also there. So akaratvat mahatvad, two things are there: akaratvat, akaratvat, and mahatvad. We can see this. We can say that this is a Mahakavya. Mahatvad also Mahakavya, and the shape of the huge shape of this work also denotes that it must be called as a Mahakavya. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that answer. I was also, I think it would be interesting since you mentioned, Mahakavya, and of course these kavyas they take as a sort of stylistic exemplars the other older models, and it'd be interesting to see if the other versions, the more modern ones, are doing the same thing or doing something different.
Yeah.
Because it sounds you have given us a very good presentation of this particular Mahakavya as being very much interested in modeling itself after the ancient models of Alankara Shastra and that sort of thing. So I think we can return to you in a bit again, since I believe it is only us in the group right now. Miss Sunita Barman, Professor Barman has left us, but she may come back. But in the meanwhile, I guess a similar question, it'd be good to ask, and I wanted to ask both of you, Dr. Avasti and Dr. Shen, about this afterwards, and I'll just raise it now before I ask specific question to Dr. Avasti. But I would like to know what the form and the style is like of the works that you are mentioning, vis-a-vis the classical and medieval models, and so that's something. But you've already given us some information about the style there. So the question I have for Dr. Avasti is a few things. First, it's very interesting that you mentioned this, that you have reframed the way we speak of the time, the dating, and said late second millennium instead of early modern or something like that, which is the common thing. And you give a very good reason for that. So I want to ask you, what if we, just the other side of it, what if we did bring modernity into it and thought about it as, because I think, that there is a conversation to be had there also. The way you have mentioned it actually is that there's a continuity with the past, and specifically it has a very creative relationship with and it's in dialogue with the Shastra and with earlier philosophers like Shankara you mentioned, and just the kind of way to combine the Nyaya and the Advaita. These are very traditional moves among the Darshana authors, and of course bringing the Devi in is very interesting, and that's where you are finding that there's a creative in this in this particular writer's this professor's this writer's approach. So my question. So the question there is that that's one question that would be good, is to think about how that conversation can be framed both ways.
Right. Thank you. That's actually a great question, and that's something that I've been thinking about a lot for some time now. In terms of my case in calling it the late second millennium is not so much that the colonial encounter did not produce anything, but rather to say, so there's two things. One is that honestly, we have not explored this period enough as an academic community, as an intellectual community, to be able to have a snap characterization, which is why my characterization is really, it's almost Buddhist, right? All convention is error. So I'm just saying it's these centuries, and there are some trends that I see in these centuries. Insofar as a question of calling it, I mean, I'm willing to think in terms of the colonial encounter. That my reservation about modernity and calling it early modern is that it assumes that modernity supplants all knowledge systems which came before it in an unprecedented manner, right? The world after Dignag and the world before Dignag are radically different, right? Nobody could have thought of epistemology in the way they did in the Dignagian tradition before him. That was another radical shift. But we don't think of it as a complete break after which everything needs to be understood in terms of revival, right? Similarly, I think what happened in the 18th century and after was significant, it was important. We need to think about these processes, but to simply name it and start engaging with it in terms of modernity is to do ourselves and our understanding of this period a disservice, because it precludes the kind of analysis that I attempt of Tarkaratna, right? We would talk about his engagement with the Sharda Act, we would see how his Brahmanical proclivities play into it, but we would assume that any real engagement with the past in his thought was a kind of revival, right? So my attempt is more as a corrective, right?
I see.
Yeah, I don't know if that helps at all.
No, it helps. It helps, but I think there, I guess the question was, and I think you hit upon it, that modernity stands in for revival, and that is something that you want to resist. But
Right.
also, I think that your work has the ability to revise our own understandings of what modernity can be. Sort of expand that particular category in a
Yeah,
way.
I mean, and I think scholars across the board, not only in Sanskrit studies but elsewhere, have been pushing that, with Eisenstadt's multiple modernities and everything that came after. So I think, yeah, thank you. That is something that bothers me about the way I characterize it.
No,
Um,
it's just wonder. No, it's a very productive way. That's why I just asked, because I think that's one of all of our struggles who work with contemporary and modern, or 18th century, 19th, and where does it begin? Where does our modern Sanskrit writings begin? Is a difficult question, but it's an important question, because that gives us a sense of perspective on what is it that we're looking for. What are the features? What are the characteristics? And maybe it's a good thing to have that debate, with ourselves.
yeah, yeah. On the question of style, I think
Yes, yes.
so I think Tarkaratna is again, I keep coming back to this period, right? What we have seen in this period, and other people have argued this for a few decades now, is this this Navya Nyayasization of Shastric language, right? In Mimamsa, in Vedanta. And I think Tarkaratna is an excellent example of that. He is very, very closely engaged with this set of commentaries that emerged in Bengal on Gangesha's Vyapti section. He's got this whole
Tarini,
yes.
Tarini, kindly be brief, because now we have another presenter
Oh,
connected
oh,
with
I'm
us.
sorry. Okay.
Like to complete
All right. I will
for
just wrap up in
this.
another few seconds.
Thank you.
So
Yeah, thank you.
I think in that sense, it's very characteristic of this slightly longer period. Um, yeah, I don't think I have anything to add immediately to that. I think I'm happy to pause there.
Thank you.
It's a it's
Thank
a
you.
it's what. Yeah. Yes. I'll
So,
yield the
Prof.
floor back to Dr. Jha. Professor Jha.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Patel. So now we have Dr. Gita Kasha. She is with us, and she is going to talk about human values.
Hello.
Human values as depicted in Prabuddha Bharatam by Purnachandra Shastri Kalavatia. So, Dr. Kasha, you are requested to introduce yourself briefly. Then you kindly put the main points of your paper so that we can have discussion on that. Dr. Gita.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I'm
Dr.
Dr.
Geetha, can you turn your phone
Kasha.
off, please? It's echoing the sound.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Gita Kasha, working in Government Degree College for Women, Begumpet, Hyderabad. At present, I'm living in London with my husband. Today, my topic is Human Values as depicted in Prabuddha Bharatam by Purnachandra Shastri Kalavatia. Sir, can you hear to me?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You are quite audible. Please go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead. We can hear you.
Please go ahead, we can hear you. Hello?
Geeta ji, go ahead. We can hear you.
It looks like the audio is not working for Dr. Kasha.
Geeta ji, can you hear us? Geeta ji, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Speak out something. Geeta ji, speak out something. Speak out something. We can't hear you. So I think we'll have to come back again. Devain.
Yes, it seems like it's unclear. I think, is she waiting for us? That's all right, but it's a shame. I wanted to hear about her, about this this particular poet. So I think it's a good question for us. I think even with this, while she comes back, I think form and style were one thing, but I'm always interested, and especially because I'm also working now on some mahakavyas and kavyas and other things in the from the contemporary period, is, you know, this question about presentation and modernity and all these things. You know, what are some of the I'm really interested in learning about what are some of the, not only the particular themes that arise that are perhaps distinct, and not only the forms and styles which are either, as Somyajit was saying, that are modeled sometimes on the classical, but also have new purposes, or as you were saying, Dr. Avasthi, that there's a kind of new creative engagement which is working, that's mingling traditional moves, which is to create new ideas through argument in commentary with the classical shastra, but also adding things which are distinctively modern.
Today I'm going to
distinctively modern. So I think it would be good to kind of have a set of features that we can identify for ourselves to really start making this field more give it more shape, instead of just having multiple works being thrown together. We should have some new movement. I think Dr. Dr. Kasha is back with us. So if you can hear us now, I yield it back to you.
By the poet Purnachandra Shastri Kalavatia by his 80 years of life experience. The bad practices of society, deteriorating human values, the impact of westernization, human values, and many more aspects of modern India were discussed in this poem, Prabuddha Bharatam. Satyam, Daya, Vivekascha, Manaviya Gunaha Smritaha, Samanjasyam, Samajepi, Samatananda Darshinam. Truth, kindness, and intelligence are said to be human qualities. Similarly, happiness too, resulting from mutual cooperation and equality in the society, is human philosophy. The poet had a positive approach towards enlightened India, which was his dream. भवेत् जगत् नागरिकत्वमेकं राष्ट्रीयतैकेव समस्तभूमौ भाषार्धधर्मै न तु राष्ट्रभेदो न शोषणं स्यात् परकीयराष्ट्रैः कल्याणकार्याणि समानभावात् भूमण्डले सर्वहिताय एतादृशं मानवदर्शनं स्यात् अन्यत् मिथ्यार्थविवादकण्डो एकात्मता मानवता समृद्धा क्षुधा विमुक्ता च भयाद् विमुक्ता समोपभोगो भवसाधनानां न जातिभेदो न च वर्णभेदः. Let there be common citizenship and one state for entire world. There should be no discrimination of people by different states on the ground of languages, minority, status, and religious faith, and the exploitation of one state by the other. This must come to an end. Where nations have many references of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which should led by Vishwamanava, who works for sustainability of family, society, and country. A person who worships truth, believes in hard work, thinks about the well-being of others, will always find peace within him. Utam cha satyam cha yadiya jivane jivanam shanti sukasya dhama. Such personalities are always respected by the world. A person's speech should touch the hearts of needy and energize them like nectar. The poet defined the character of Vishwamanava thus: Yaha snihyati sada vishwam karmana vachasa jagat sampannamapyenam snehenarchati sanna. Our philosophy of life ought to be such as to be conducive to the welfare of all on this earth in equal measure. One, along with rich, poor, weak people, get same respect and honor.
Have you concluded, Dr. Kasha? Can you hear us?
We just lost her. I think she's got
Okay.
disconnected.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, hopefully she'll be connected back. Speaking of one of the themes of the modern writings, it seems like this is one that this call for a kind of manavatva, right? Or social values degenerating, that seems to be a very big concern of Sanskrit poems across the board. I wonder if you're familiar with other such works like that. I think Professor Jha must have the more.
Now we have
Dr. Burman is also
Smrita.
here.
Yes. And
Then I can try. I did not connect it. Yeah, link. I don't know. I hopeless. Really.
No, thank
First
you.
to last time.
never mind,
Thank you
never
for
mind. Thank you.
thank you for returning. May I ask you a question, Dr. Burman? Can you hear us?
Ha.
You know, you had
Did
yes.
Vivekananda. Ha. Tell me.
Yes, yes. I wanted to ask you about Swami Vivekananda's. You mentioned this. You were discussing, and I'll ask you in English. I know you presented to us in Sanskrit itself, but you mentioned about the this particular work, this this charita.
Swami Vivekananda Charitam and Vishwabhanu. Swami
Vishwabhanu.
Vivekananda Charitam and Vishwabhanu.
Ha. Samajik Mullabodh. Ha.
Yes, so you
Tell me,
mentioned, and
question.
so it was interesting that it brings out Swamiji's shall we say, a kind of Vyavaharika Vedanta, right? And so because you talked about this Margatraya, which is being adapted towards the
Ganadev. Gana 6. Yes, yes.
So it seems that particular is that is the to kind of frame Swamiji's message in an idea of a new kind of a navya manavatva, as you said again.
Yes.
So is this charita, is this kavya that you speak of, is it trying to bring out those particular features of that are kind of adapting or applying Swamiji's main thinking into a particular direction? Would you say that is true? And how if you wish to add something, please do. You can answer in Sanskrit also. That's fine. If you understood the question, I could ask.
Actually, বিশেষত স্বামীজি ত্রম্বক স্বামী মহোদয় না মহাকাব্যম শ্রী স্বামী বিবেকানন্দ চরিতার্ম মহাকাব্যের মধ্যে তন্মধ্যে अस्ति বিশেষত देशभक्ति मध्ये सर्वदा स्वामीजी उक्तवान् जे भारतं पुनः पूर्व गौरवान्वित कर्तुम् अस्य बलं सांख्यशक्ति निर्माणम् एकसूत्रं च चेति त्रयं संयोज्यम् नाम किम् एवं वदति पुनः उक्तवान् जे ओहे बान्धवा अयं कठिन श्रमस्य काल विद्यते अस्मिन् काले निद्रां परित्याज्य मातृभूमेरुत्थानाय प्राणप्रणेन प्रयत्नेन विधेय भो भो देशवासिनो उत्तिष्ठतो जाग्रतो अभया भूत्वा देश रक्षा व्रत माचरत्। ये त्रम्बक स्वामी महोदय तस्य महाकाव्ये लिखितवान् उत्तिष्ठत सम्प्राप्य बरा निबोधो भ्रमण नभि सम्प्रति धीर वीर। एतत् मध्ये किम् अस्ति नाम किं दे विशेषत स्वामी विवेकानन्दस्य वाणी मध्ये श्री अरविन्द गान्धी सुभाष चन्द्र नेतारः देश रक्षा व्रत परायणता जाता तेषाम् अन्तःकरणानि भारत मातुं सेवन कार्ये संलग्नानि। तर्हि
डॉक्टर सुनीता तत्तु स्पष्टम् अस्ति। प्रोफेसर पटेल महोदयानां प्रश्नः अयम् आसीत् यत् किं स्वामी विवेकानन्दस्य व्यावहारिक वेदान्तिक सन्देशः
अस्तु
अस्मिन् महाकाव्ये तत्र व्यवहारपथम् आनीतः वर्तते।
अस्तु अस्तु तर्हि एतत् मध्ये ज्योतीन्द्र विमल चौधरी महोदयेन तस्य चम्पू काव्यम् अस्ति तद् मध्ये वदति जे विशेषत नरेन्द्रस्य जीवने पादुर्भूत काचन अदम्य ज्ञान पिपासा किम् अस्ति किं नाम जगत को वा धर्म सत्य का शिक्षा दर्शन शास्त्रस्य एवं एकम् उदाहरणेन सः उक्तवान् यथा
उदाहरणं परिहरतु अस्माकं पार्श्वे तावान् कालः नास्ति। भवती एतद् ज्ञापयतु एतानि काव्यानि अधिकृत्य यानि काव्यानि भवत्या
न न
अत्र चर्चितानि
सामान्यतः अहं वदामि आम् सामान्यतः
यानि
केवलं
काव्यानि अधिकृत्य किमपि शोधग्रन्थ कोऽपि शोधग्रन्थः भवत्या परिशीलितः वर्तते वा?
सर् सर् महोदय एकस्मिन् वदामि यत् रूपं प्रदत्तं तत् विशिष्ट स्यात् आत्मनि जे विषया सन्निविष्टा भवन्ति आत्मा तन्निशिष्टो भवति तन्मध्ये अस्ति किं ना विशेषत वेदांत प्राप्ति भवेत् नवदेह धारणं वा एवं प्रश्न आगच्छति 55% जलीय पदार्थे अवशिष्ट हिमोग्लोबिन इति रंजक पदार्थ स्वोपस्थित्वात् श्रोणित लोहित वर्ण विशिष्ट भवति आकाशस्य प्रतिबिंब पादात् जलं नील रूप विशिष्टं भवति किन्तु जले तु रूप रहित उदाहरण
धन्यवादः धन्यवादः
विद्युत एवं
सुनीता
मनुष्याणां
महोदय इदानीम् अत्रैव विरमतु now Dr. Gita is back with us. Dr. Gita, could you kindly finish your presentation which was disturbed? So due to this connection,
Can I
could
continue?
you finish that within 2 minutes? We don't have enough time. Within 2 minutes, kindly finish that presentation. Please go ahead, Dr. Gita.
I think Dr. Gita can hear us.
That's all right.
Dr. Gita, do you hear us? Do you hear us? Can you speak?
She can't hear us. It's okay. No problem.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have only 6 minutes left, almost 6 minutes left. So Dr. Gita was talking about a kavya called Prabuddha Bharatam, composed by Purnachandra Sastri Kalabatiya. I haven't gone through this book, but I have read another Mahakavya written by the same poet. That's Aparajit Vadhu Mahakavyam. So he was a great poet, and he was in Jaipur, I believe, in Rajasthan. And now we have just 5 to 6 minutes. So Professor Patel, I give it to Professor Patel to deliver his departing remarks, concluding remarks.
No, I think
for this.
I think I've spoken enough, but I will respond. But I wish Dr. Avasti was still here. It would be good to hear from Dr. Sen. And are you back with us, Gita ji? No, it's fine. But it would be nice to, and now her volume is not good. It would be good to hear from all of us, and also people from in the audience, if you are there, if you have some thoughts to offer about, this particular, the theme of this panel, modern Sanskrit writings, because I think this will be the end of our sessions. We have nothing tomorrow. And I think for the future, it would be very good to get a sense of some ideas that you'd like to share with us, because I think this is a field that will grow in the future, but it needs more direction. So, Dr. Shen, I'll let you be first, and then I'd like to hear Dr. Jaz's comments as well, who has more experience.
Yeah, I think you were talking about some features of modern Sanskrit literature, modern Sanskrit writings. I think there is one feature that I find in the modern Sanskrit texts nowadays, that the use of more native language words in Sanskrit. Some new words are still coming from various languages, various local languages. As you know that I am a Bengali, and I find in the modern Sanskrit text written by some Bengali writers, they use some some Bengali phrases, Bengali, we see Bagdharas and Pravachanas and Avhanakas, which we use in Bengali language. These are coming to Sanskrit texts nowadays. Like you see, there is a Prekshanaka Saptakam written by Radha Vallabh Tripathi ji. We find there the use of word, Sanskrit word police. Police, this word is Sanskritized, and he used vibhakti in itself. Pulishena tadayishyami, pulishena marayishyami. Evam prakarena police sabdasya vyavaharam karoti tatra. So these types of things is very new to Sanskrit literature nowadays, and we see some, as I called, some Vagdhara, some Avhanakas are greatly used in nowadays Sanskrit texts, and the use of some characters that are characters like means. Those characters who have some much influence in society nowadays, these types of kavyas are written in Sanskrit languages as the main protagonist, main hero of the kavyas, like Subhas Chandra Bose, Vivekananda Charitam. There are many Vivekananda Charitams, many Vivekananda kavya, Vijayam, like this, by S.B. Varnekar Mahodaya and others also, like Sunita Varmanji said, by Jatindra Vimal Chaudhary. Jatindra Vimal Chaudhary himself has as many of 25 natakas, and his wife Rama Chaudhary also has 25 or 27 natakas in Sanskrit language, where these mainly female characters like Sita, like
Thank you,
Sarada.
Swamiji. Thank
Yes.
you, thank you,
Yes,
thank
yes.
you for your observations. Now we are going to wrap
Yeah.
up this program because just 1 minute is left. So we can.
Dr. Jai, I give you the last words because I think it would be good to hear your just a couple things that you have that you see the field going
Yeah,
in.
now we have very less time, but just if we talk of just one issue, I think a lot of contemporary Sanskrit writings is coming through social media, and it has no regulation, no regulator. So we have to think about that seriously. How can we make best use of it and sensible use of it? How to moderate that? That needs to be done by learned community. And as Swamijit said, that Professor Radha Vallabh Tripathi ji has used the word police without adding any soup to having added soup suffixes with it. So we have been doing that with words like bank or rail in All India Radio and television, Doordarshan news bulletins. But in literature, that is being done. So that is also quite interesting. And
we can also say that
yeah,
was that was being done even in earlier periods. Even in earlier period, where Deshi Shabdas were being brought into Sanskrit.
yeah, yes. So I think on that note, we can end up today's session after our panel on modern Sanskrit section with a Shanti Path Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Thank you everybody on the panel, in the audience room, and everybody who provided us technical support. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
And thank you also to Gita ji, who is still delivering her paper, but we cannot hear her. She's but one day we will hear her paper, so it'll be good.